Finally, big news of the day. Big news of the past few weeks. Honestly, people are still talking about it because I don't think we have a resolution yet. Honda's pulling out of Formula One by the end of 2021. Let's kind of brief the situation here. Mercedes supplies three engines right now. Ferrari supplies three engines right now. McLaren, Renault, the Renault group supplies two engines with, of course, Renault and McLaren. And Honda supplies two engines. Unfortunately, those two engines goes to Aston Martin Red Bull, where Aston Martin might also make a business decision to rescind sponsorship, and of course, AlphaTauri. So, what's your early look into this situation? Of course, we all have thoughts about this very very particular, like, and pretty important junction, considering AlphaTauri is I would say a leading mid pack team, and of course, Red Bull's the top three, barring any craziness.
Right. So from a team perspective, from Red Bull's perspective, it definitely does pose a big problem because they're unlikely to go to Mercedes because Mercedes are unlikely going to be wanting to provide them with an engine. They are unlikely to go to Ferrari because by the performance of their engine this year, it hasn't been great. And if they do choose to go to Renault, of course, Renault, they've broken their relationship with Renault, as we all saw in the first season of Drive to Survive. Christian Horner and Cyril do not get along.
Yeah, this is such an interesting scenario because, like, just as fans, we kind of bicker a little bit, talk about races. Remember, like, when we were like first talk about it, we talked about Pierre Gasly and how, like, we want a Christian Horner interview right away after Gasly's win back in Italy. And now, like, it seems like Christian Horner might have to face another possible regret that he personally, I would say more on his side, kind of burned the bridge
Yes.
on.
Yeah. What was his nickname for Cyril? Cyril Irritable, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's
That's
irritable.
what he
Yeah,
nicked. That's what he nicknamed his fellow team principal.
fellow
Pretty
team,
harsh.
fellow team principal, and they supply engines to you where while you don't make your own engines. Of course, very different situation because Red Bull's not from a traditionally racing background and like everything like that. They don't make cars. They make
Right.
energy drinks, and that kind of led to the whole thing. But then, going back to Cyril thing, if this was really to happen, what do you think would play out in terms of the dynamic between them, and who's gonna hold it against who? Just have some fun, make some guesses here.
Okay. So if Christian Horner does have to go back to Renault, he's going to go back to Renault with his tail between his legs. But he is Christian Horner. He is a sly man who is nimble at working the media. I think Christian Horner will be able to twist the story, making it so that Red Bull seem to be helping Renault and that Christian Horner will be the top dog and Cyril will be back to his usual place, being stomped on by Christian Horner's jokes and the backhand of his laughs.
Well, yeah, I feel like Horner definitely has that plan, but then I feel like the initial, of course, I won't say shock because I feel like that's the only way they could go right now, barring from a very, very interesting scenario where maybe someone would swoop in, or perhaps someone who has not been in the F1 racing business for a while could swoop in and supply an engine. But then, how good would that engine be? Because it's such an exclusive club right now, and we also have future concerns about the spending and how beyond 2022 it's going to be a more level playing field. And how could Christian Horner manipulate this situation in such a short time, because things are really going to change post 2022. That would
Right.
be such an interesting thing to look at, just because he has been the top dog. I would say, apart from Toto, like, he is the most influential person in this sport. Of course, minus drivers, minus, sorry, Mattia, but it's Horner and Toto.
Yes, certainly. Christian Horner has been on the scene for years and he's consistently been at the top. And if anyone can make this work, it is him. I think that Red Bull's best option forward would be to bring in a new supplier because they will have, like with Honda, more control over the engine. They'll be able to fit it better to their car and they will just be able to work better with that team, which they haven't already had a broken relationship with. So that is the best option. But in today's economy, as a result of COVID-19, it is struggling. It is a difficult economy to enter Formula One in, especially because Formula One is very, very expensive. So it is going to be a big struggle. But if anyone can do it, it is Christian Horner. And I'm sure that he will put everything into it.
Mm-hmm. Let's switch the scope a little bit real quick, just because it's also an interesting situation on Honda's end. They released a statement, of course, talking about how they're going to pull out after 2021, saying that they're looking to realize their realization of carbon neutrality by 2050 and spend their research and development, so R&D, on fuel cell and battery. This is very, very interesting, a very, very interesting scenario for F1 because F1 has been in the forefront of research and development in terms of the automobile industry throughout the history, I would say from like 50s, 60s onward as the sport started. Is this a direction where F1 should be looking to go, considering like fuel cell and maybe more battery powered and, if you're ambitious, hydrogen?
Right. I think it is very interesting. Honda's withdrawal from F1 must bring a little bit of concern because they are a big engine supplier. They do have the resources to be in Formula One and they have actively decided to take a step back. So this does suggest that maybe the world is moving past oil-based engines and oil-based cars. And so that is concerning for Formula One because Formula One has always been based in fossil fuel, based in oil. Remember, Formula One isn't that old. It only started around the 1950s. It is still a relatively young sport, especially compared to even the group of the Olympic Games, which runs its history all the way back to Athens. Now, that's tough to change your base. It's tough to move away from something which has been so known to everyone. And so if they do choose to move away, they're going to risk a lot of their fan base. Because remember back in 2013, when a lot of people were very angry that Formula One changed their engines to make them sound different. Now imagine that on a different scope. It's going to be massively hard to get a lot of people to be on board with that decision, especially when today we are even debating whether climate change is real sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that, like I don't want to like put this hat onto you, but we are Formula One fans. Maybe deep down, we all like that absolutely fuming vroom vroom sound that comes from the back of a car. It's something special because it's not something that we as normal people like. I personally, I don't even drive. I was from the city, so like we don't have a means to achieve that type of speed, nor do we have the skill. Very, very honestly, and this situation is very different to me because F1 has always been revolutionary. F1 has always they have not shied away from evolution and bringing in new stuff and making it work. But then when we're talking about a new form of energy supply in F1, like we said, fuel cell, battery, hydrogen, even I don't think those would be a sustainable, not really sustainable, but like a stable way to support an F1 car in like 5 to 10 years. They're like the technology, believe it or not, is simply not there yet for them to be applied to F1. And again, we like the engines go. We like when the engines go, and it's just as fans, I understand, of course, it's better for the environment, sustainability wise, it's gonna work. But then some people would wonder, like F1 is just a fraction of like road cars or whatever. Is that mere fraction of I guess pollution or consumption of fossil fuel deserve like the royalty treatment of keeping it around for the sake of our entertainment?
Exactly. And you're completely right. We all love the roar and scream of those engines. And if Formula One does move away from oil, it will be fundamentally different because you're right. The technology just isn't there to make a smooth transition. We will see different pit stops. We will see different cars. We will see a different Formula One at its core. Now, if is it worth keeping the oil engines? In my mind, of course, I jump to yes, but you have to consider Formula One, as you said, as an industry pioneer. They're the ones that developed the new thing. So, in that regard, I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe it is right for them to start to move on. They have already shown that initiative before. They have moved from engines to engines to engines that are getting slightly more environmentally conscious. The next big leap is going to be a big leap, and I think that they are the one sport, the one portion of motorsport that could pull it off. And if they do, it could be revolutionary, not just for their sport, but for all kinds of motorsport and the cars that we drive on the road today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just them looking to like. I guess it's same thing as Honda. They're looking like F1 and Honda in this situation. As much as it could be tough, they're just looking for a way to continue what they have been doing and applying the best minds in the world, perhaps, to help the world to solve this problem. I'm not trying to make them sound like godlike or a godsend or whatever, but that has been what they're doing, and it's a very very interesting situation considering how it's a sport. It's a mere sport. It has revolutionized so many things in our lives in the existence for like what 50-ish 60-ish years if we counting like 1950s, so that's definitely something interesting to look forward to.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's not only about whether Formula One uses these types of engines, it's whether Formula One survives because it is so radically different. And my worry is that if Honda is leaving, who's going to be next? Is it going to be Mercedes that pulls out? And then we only have Renault and Ferrari. And then is Renault going to pull out? And then what is Formula One if there's only one engine supplier? So I hope that Formula One does not die. I hope that we move forward. I hope that we can still enjoy and love the sport that we have for almost 70 years.
Yeah, definitely, because like I feel like if there is something that could be done for the teams that have been producing engines and to like go on an initiative to look for a solution that could work in what we're going to do in the future with our energy, especially energy powered cars, like I feel like they will be in. There's still going to be a product coming out that could benefit the team and also, well, just bettering the world in general.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and like you said, if those like engine producers drop, that would be a huge trouble. But then maybe this is something we could look into in the future of kind of like communisming the F1 and how to make the make the playing field more level in terms of 2022 and beyond. Of course, there have been like ideas thrown around with like reverse grids and like consistent engines and designs and whatnot, but that's for something later because we've covered a lot of ground here. We have two very interesting Grand Prix preceding and succeeding us, and then of course also the news of the week. So Amy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Stay tuned for more on Real Football Show, be it football or other sport. I'll try to cram more of other sports in. But until then, stay tuned, subscribe if you like the content, share also, and thank you very much.